Hello, 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 everyone. Hello. This is yours truly, J Blue 68. Today is April the 12th, Friday evening where I'm at, here in my beloved state of Michigan. And boy, oh boy, have we got some news for you. If you haven't heard, which I'm sure most of you comic book fans, sci-fi fans probably have, big news just dropped. As Marvel / Disney usually does, just like they did for the latest Avengers trailer. Big news from Disney, and we're going to lay it on down for you right now. A lot of stuff that just dropped today. Good news, exciting news, probably good for some, not good for others. Depending on, well, let's just get into it. And I'm actually going to read because I printed this stuff. My eyes have been on the computer all day, so I definitely don't want to be looking at a computer while I'm reading this stuff, so I just downloaded it. And I have everything in print. And this deals with the Disney Marvel deal in terms of their streaming network that we've been hearing about for months and months and months. Before and after the Netflix Disney deal went bad. Let me just drink a cup of coffee really quick before I do that. Oh, I got my Captain Marvel cup. And as I'm sure you probably may or may not have heard too, what's wrong with this camera? That Captain Marvel has surpassed the billion mark. Whether you like the movie or not, it has. So, that tastes so good. That makes such good coffee. Anyway, so let's get into it. The Walt Disney Company's highly anticipated Investor Day, that took place today, I believe, provided an extensive overview of Disney's comprehensive direct-to-consumer strategy. As you all know, that Warner Brothers and DC have already been on this particular streaming thing for some time now. It included presentations on Hulu, Hotstar, ESPN, and the upcoming Disney service, which will launch in the Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, and National Geographic networks, and will be available on connected TV and mobile devices. Some of this printed right, some of it did not. But as you may or may not know, Hulu has been in contract with Marvel Disney for some time now. Almost around the same time, or shortly after Netflix and Marvel had their deal going on, and they had 4 shows running consecutively, and that was, of course, Daredevil, which was their flagship show, and then after that, Jessica Jones, then Luke Cage, and Iron Fist, and then later on came the Defenders, and then the Punisher. So that actually was 6 shows, and of course that contract ended recently as of last year. No, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's a coffee, y'all. Hulu currently has 2 shows running on their network with Marvel. That's Cloak and Dagger, and episode 3 of Cloak and Dagger just premiered yesterday. I've started the show, but haven't really been able to get into it because, as always, I'm busy. And then The Runaways. And Runaways Season 2 should be premiering sometime this summer. But Hulu also has a contract, basically, with Disney. Now, there's something very significant about that, and I'm going to get into that in a minute, and the reason why I've mentioned Netflix with that. And we're going to get into that in a moment. Please pay attention. I'm not being funny when I say that, but really listen to what I'm about to say. I know about 100 guys probably have done videos on this, but none of them probably will touch what I'm about to say. I'm going to say it in a little while. So again, please really listen to what I want to say here. During today's event, which took place on the studio lot in Burbank, California, investors heard from Disney's senior management team, including Bob Iger, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer Kevin Mayer, Chairman, Director to Consumer and International, Christine McCarthy, Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, Lowell Singer. Wonder is he related to Bryan Singer? Anyway, probably not. Hope not anyway. Bryan's in big trouble. Senior Vice President, Investor Relations, and Jimmy Pitaro, President of ESPN and co-chair, Disney Media Networks. Presentations also came from Michael Powell, President, Disney Streaming Services, Randy Freer, Chief Executive Officer, Hulu, Russell Wolf, Executive Vice President and General Manager, President of Content at Disney. Goes on to say, Disney marks a bold step forward in an exciting new era for our company, one in which consumers will have a direct connection to the incredible array of creative content that is the Walt Disney Company's hallmark. Okay? We are confident that the combination of our unrivaled storytelling, beloved brands, iconic franchises, and cutting-edge technology will make Disney a standout in the marketplace and deliver significant value for consumers and shareholders alike, Iger said. Several creative executives from across the worlds of Disney, Jennifer Lee, Chief Creative Officer of Walt Disney Animation Studios, Pete Docter, Chief Creative Officer, Pixar Animation Studios, Kathleen Kennedy. President, Lucasfilm. Kevin Feige, President of Marvel Studios. Yay. Gary Marsh, President and Chief Creative Officer, Disney Channels Worldwide. Sean Bailey, President, Walt Disney Studios Motion Picture Productions. Courtney Monroe, President, National Geographic Global Television Networks. And Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau, in case you don't know or may have forgotten, Jon Favreau directed the very first 2 Iron Man movies. Jon Favreau has also lent his voice to the Star Wars Clone Wars animated series as one of the Mandalorian warriors. And that's significant because Jon Favreau is actually the executive producer and writer of the Mandalorian Star Wars TV series that you probably heard or may not have heard about. The Mandalorian warriors, of course, are the arch enemies to the Jedi Knights. They are dressed like the bounty hunter Boba Fett in that same armor. But Jon Favreau is a true, real fan of everything Star Wars and Marvel. The guy is really down for everything in terms of Star Wars lore and Marvel. I trust his vision and his work with the Star Wars product more than the guy who's doing the new trilogy, Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy. But Jon Favreau also plays as Happy. I think his name is Happy Hogan, who's the what do we call him? The butler or assistant to Tony Stark, played by, of course, Robert Downey Jr. So to hear Jon Favreau's name attached to all this brings me much excitement and cheer. Definitely. Rooting for him. But The Mandalorian offered a glimpse into Disney's impressive and extensive content slate. Disney will launch in November. The Disney streaming service will launch in November, right in time for the holidays. Perfect timing. The strategy is really off the hook, I have to say. It's very well done, very much like Warner Brothers Disney strategy. Disney will launch in November with a robust library of theatrical and television content, and in its first year will release more than 25 original series and 10 original films, documentaries, specials by and from Marvel Studios. Now, to get more specific, I'm not going to go over all the different projects they're going to release. I've already mentioned one, which is The Mandalorian. But a list of movies that will be released, or television series that will be released under the Marvel helm, will be The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Sebastian Stan will reprise his role as the Winter Soldier, and Anthony Mackie as the Falcon. A live-action series with Anthony Mackie returning as Falcon. And then also WandaVision, which is Wanda and the Wanda Maximoff, or the Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch's real name is Wanda Maximoff. And then, of course, the Vision, played by Paul Bettany, and Elizabeth Olsen, who plays as I just mentioned, the Scarlet Witch. And I actually did a video on this back in the summer. I showed the comic books to everyone. You can check out my video. Just go back and check out some of my videos. I think that was probably back in either September or August of last year when I talked about these upcoming projects. I may have the months wrong, but you can go back and look at some of my old videos and find them. This also goes on to say that Marvel's What If projects. That's exciting to hear too. Marvel's doing a project called What If, and What If is based off of their comic books. Now, there's something really exciting about that too, that we're going to get into in a minute as well. The first animated series from Marvel Studios will be based off the What If comic books, and takes inspiration from the comic books in the same name. Each episode will explore a pivotal moment from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and turn it on its head, leading the audience into uncharted territory. Really pay attention to that. Really pay attention to that. I'm going to show you one of the Marvel What If comic books. I have one with me, and it happens to be on one of my favorite characters, Spider-Man. Now, we all know the original Spider-Man as being Peter Parker, but he has a nemesis, one of his high school bully, a guy known as Flash Thompson. And in this book, it says, what if Flash Thompson, Peter Parker's old high school nemesis, became Spider-Man? So again, what they do is almost like the Twilight Zone Marvel version, where they take stories that they've already done, whether it be in the MCU or Marvel movies or even Marvel television shows, and they take a spin on it and take a character that we wouldn't expect and put them into a prominent role like they do in the comic books. There's another Marvel What If, so that's exciting to me for many reasons. And we're going to go back to when I was talking about the Netflix deal. Well, of course, Netflix canceled all of the Marvel TV shows. And there was no promise, or any word that they would come back in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Hold on, let me get us another sip of coffee here. What I'm excited about with the What If series, and as I just read here, they'll be leading the audience into uncharted territory, is and Jeff Loeb is the president of Marvel TV, and he hinted that they basically, all of the shows are over with, but they have other things planned, and they haven't said what they are. And for Marvel to bring this news this quickly, I really won't say quickly, but before the San Diego Comic-Con, which is one of the largest Comic-Cons in the entire world. I would have thought they were going to announce all this stuff during the San Diego Comic-Con. But for them to release this news so early, it means they have other plans aside from just this stuff. But the what if stories are inspiring to me because of the fact that since Netflix canceled all of their shows, I heard a rumor too that Disney is in talk with Hulu, who I also mentioned, to take those shows and put them on Netflix. Now, some of you may say that's impossible because they still have a contract with Marvel, and there's a lot of legalities involved. Well, here's a spin on that. Again, the title is What If. They can take those characters and call them something else. Like, for instance, Luke Cage, one of my favorite shows, was also called Power Man. They can take Luke Cage and actually reintroduce him as Power Man. They can't legally call him Luke Cage until the contract with Netflix and Marvel expires, which won't be till 4 years. It's like a cooling off period that they have to have legally, unless Netflix decides to go ahead and sell those shows back to Marvel, which I hope they do. And if they do that, then I think the shows will go directly to Hulu. which would be a great idea, and I would love to see that too, because then you would have all Marvel shows on one network, one of their spin-off networks, and that being, of course, Hulu. So Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, the Defenders, and the Punisher can actually be reintroduced to other characters. One of the things I always reiterate on my videos is to pay attention to comic books. For those of you who do not read comic books, I always encourage you to read them, to read a comic book. You don't have to even read the entire series. There are key books that you can read. Just go to your comic book shops and talk to the comic book dealers or owners. And most of them who have knowledge about comic books can tell you what books to read. Because Thor, for instance, in the comic books becomes a woman, Jane Foster, who was the former lover of Thor. And again, as I mentioned, Luke Cage is one's called Power Man. Daredevil was also known as the Devil of Hell's Kitchen. So they could legally take their own character and rename it under a What If series as a Devil of Hell's Kitchen without calling him Daredevil. To give you a more finite example of what I'm talking about, the late great Prince, one of my favorite artists, Prince Rogers Nelson, Purple Rain Prince. Prince once wore a symbol on his face. If you can remember, it was, and I don't have the symbol with me. I wish I would have brought it with me. I'm also a big Prince fan. I have a huge Prince collection. I'm going to do a video on that one day too. But Prince once wore a symbol on his face, and it was shaped like the symbol of a woman and a man. And he pretty much joined the symbols together and would wear the symbol on his face, and actually would have the symbol on his albums. He stopped calling himself Prince, and this was back in 1995. And people thought, that he was doing something weird. Prince was going on another one of his little weird trips that he always was known to do. But there was a reason why he did that. It wasn't him just tripping and doing something weird and crazy. He was doing that for legal reasons, because Prince had a big lawsuit against Warner Brothers, who owns DC Comics. Yeah, he sued Warner Brothers and was in legal hell with them for years to try to get back the masters of all of his albums. Because Warner Brothers was able to play all of his music at one point without his permission, make money off of his music without really asking him for permission, play it on commercials or ads or whatever, and make money off of it. And they get a certain percentage of royalties, and he only got like a small percentage if they did that. So when he was suing them, and when he left Warner Brothers, he could no longer use the name Prince, his own birth name. So he started putting a symbol on his face. And people just call him the artist formerly known as Prince. Remember that? That was back in the 90s. So they call him the artist formerly known as Prince. Well, I'm using that as an example. Marvel can do the same thing. They use the superhero formerly known as Luke Cage, Power Man. Seriously, it sounds silly, but that's what I think what they're planning on doing. Because Jeff Loeb kind of hinted that the characters are going to come back, but just in a different way. And then another thing, too, to think about, with Thanos and the Infinity War doing the Snapshot thing, it changed all of Marvel history as we know it. All the characters may not necessarily return back the way that they were once they come back. Because in the comic books, Black Panther, as we know as T'Challa, his sister, Shuri, becomes a Black Panther in the comic books. So the Snapshot not only eliminated certain superheroes from existence, it also changed certain timelines. And then also with Ant-Man was very significant. For those who didn't see Ant-Man and the Wasp, you really need to see it before this movie comes out, before Endgame comes out, because they talk about quantum universe and different timelines in different universes and things like that. Michelle Pfeiffer, who plays as the original, what's her name? She plays as the original Wasp. Talks about how there are different timelines in the universe that she was in. And then also what Thanos has done has changed certain timelines. And I mentioned in my other video that you could watch at JBlue 2, JBlue 68 2. Me and my buddy Mike did a video talking about how we believe there's another big bad that's going to be coming along. It's not Thanos controlling everything. I truly believe the big bad is going to be Galactus. I think Galactus is the one that really Thanos is trying to protect the universe from. He seems like the bad guy, but there's something else behind Thanos, which is why he collected all of the Infinity Stones. Anyway, the What If series has the capacity to bring back all of those characters from Netflix, just in a different way, put a different spin on them, just like it says here in the article. So that's what I wanted to say. And that kind of makes me excited that they will do that. And I'm hoping that we're bringing back the same actors. But again, with the Snapshot thing, it changed everything. It may not necessarily be, Power Man. Power Man may be. There's a different Power Man in Marvel Comics too. That's not Luke Cage. I forgot the young man's name, but they have a different character that was introduced in the Mighty Marvels, and I did a video on that as well. So that's the significance of these announcements when it comes to what Marvel is planning with their projects, which I'm excited about definitely. Also, with the Scarlet Witch, in the comic books, the Scarlet Witch and the Vision get married, and the Scarlet Witch uses her hex powers and envisions her and the Vision having a child together. And well, I don't want to tell too much because the story may be different when it's actually aired on television. But in basically, in short terms, they are able to introduce the X-Men through that TV show. There's a lot of ways that can be done because in the comic books, Wanda the Scarlet Witch actually puts a hex on the X-Men. I'm believing that they're going to use that TV show to slowly but surely start introducing the mutants. They're not going to call them the X-Men. They're going to start just introducing mutants. For a long time, Marvel was not even able to use that terminology, but now they're legally able to, since Disney now has bought 20th Century Fox. Let's see, is there anything else here? Oh, also, there's something here about Jeff Goldblum having his own TV show. It says Jeff Goldblum pulls back the curtain on a seemingly familiar object to reveal a world of astonishing connections, fascinating science, and a whole lot of big ideas. Jeff Goldblum played as the Grand Master in Thor Ragnarok. So there's a lot that can be done with that too. I'm not sure what. And then again, it mentions about and the Star Wars Clone Wars. The Star Wars trailer just dropped today, the new one for Episode 9. Honestly, I could care less about that. But I will always be, if you can look behind me and see, I will always be a Star Wars fan. I'm sure you see Greedo standing behind me on one of my shelves. And I'll move the camera up a little bit so you can see some other things. Probably. I'm sorry, excuse that light there. There we go. See all that? I will always be a Star Wars fan, but I am not loving this new trilogy at all. However, I am a huge fan of the Star Wars animated series, The Clone Wars. It's a brilliant show. And I'm excited. I was excited last year when they were announced at one of the Comic Cons that they'll be bringing back some new episodes for Star Wars Clone Wars. That will be on the new Disney streaming network. And in case you don't know, it's only $6.99. They're starting off at $6.99 a month. That's their introductory rate to get everyone on board. But I'm sure as time goes by, probably just like Netflix, the prices will go up as they increase their content. Nothing stays the same, unfortunately, or fortunately. So that's the news I have. Let me see if we can flip through some more stuff here. And to give you an idea of what the streaming network will look like, I've copied the page. That's what it's going to look like. Okay. So there again, several television shows, Clone Wars, all of the Marvel movies, all of the Marvel films from 2008 to the present. That's from Iron Man to Captain Marvel. So it's all 20. Will soon be all 24 films available to watch. So of course they're going to pull all their movies from Netflix, except for the Netflix Marvel shows that they're contracted with, and I've already mentioned what those shows are: Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Defenders, and The Punisher. But I have a feeling eventually those shows are going to end up somewhere in one of the other Disney contracted companies, and possibly Hulu. Of course, they already got my money. I'm sold on it, excited about it. A lot of people are pissed because you're saying like 4,000 employees lost their jobs at 20th Century Fox due to the Disney takeover. Let me just say this real quick about that. 20th Century Fox didn't have to go out of business because Disney bought them out. Because only thing that Marvel wanted was their characters. The only thing Marvel wanted was the X-Men back. That's all they wanted. Disney could have kept the rest of their 20th Century Fox could have kept the rest of their product or products. Marvel was not interested in anything else except their characters. And those 4,000 people could have kept their jobs. I'm hoping and thinking with this new streaming network that the people who lost their jobs at 20th Century Fox will be recruited, as employees at this new streaming network that will take place. I'm sure there'll be a lot of job openings, definitely. So that should have been or considered to be part of the package deal. I'm quite sure that Disney has reached out to those employees to see if they would like to work for them. I'm definitely sure they could use their services. So again, that was just a bad marketing deal with 20th Century Fox. They should have gave up the X-Men right after they did X-Men Apocalypse, which was an absolutely horrible movie. And now they're doing X-Men Dark Phoenix, which looks pretty good from the trailer. But again, they still don't want to give up the ghost, so to speak. They're still trying to hang on to X-Men projects, including the New Mutants, which they're saying they're still going to try to somehow market that and profile it on either the big screen or on TV. Just give it up, man. I mean, my God. You've had the X-Men for 15 freaking years. Give it to its rightful owners. Instead of being greedy, and jealous, like squabbling children, give it up to the people who it belongs to. And everyone else could have been happy. They could have kept their jobs. It's all about, people just being stupid and ignorant and greedy. Why bad decisions are a lot of times made, not only in terms of movies, but in terms of business decisions. Because you got the wrong people who are so-called educated making decisions that they have no business making. All right. That's it. That's all, y'all. So stay tuned. Keep your ears and eyes open. As the news comes to me, I'll give it to you. Peace, love, and hair grease.